Hi, this is Dan Sater, president of the Sater Design Collection, and I've been doing a series of videos explaining the what's included in a set of plans. And as I said in the first video, we try to make them as detailed as possible and to encompass as much information to make sure that the creation of your home is turns out the way we would intend it to be, as if it was for our own house. And so again, it's why we go to great detail to show things, but at the same time, a lot of specific things as far as site specific things, as far as engineering, structural things. That's something we always recommend you work with a local engineer to review the footer sizes and beam sizes, things like that. But I covered in the first video, talked about the cover sheet, site plan, typical wall sections, typical details, and the plumbing or foundation layout plan. Now I want to cover the next series of sheets, and what we have here, usually the next set is what's the floor plan call out sheet. Now what you're going to find out in smaller homes, we may combine, there's a floor plan call out and a floor plan dimension. If it's a smaller home, we may just have it as one sheet, both the dimensions and the call outs together. But using the larger homes, we usually like to separate it out for clarity. For one thing, you can look at this and say, this floor plan call out doesn't have the dimensions, so it's easier to look at to reference it. It doesn't have a bunch of dimension lines going through it, so it's easy to make it out. And it's great for working with your builder or sub-trade, just to kind of reference and look through this. So the purpose of this one again is to reference things like there's 7 shelves in this linen closet, and talking about a closet system in the closet or makeup area. You reference some things referencing to the floor plan. The other thing, there are some references to the ceiling designs, but again, that's covered in a later sheet. We do a separate sheet to talk about ceiling details. But then you'll notice up in here we have a door and window schedule. So you'll see that there's little hexagons by the windows and circles by the doors, either with a number or a letter. So you would look to the corresponding letter or number up here on the sheet, and it would give information as far as the general size of it, maybe some specifications, which obviously are just our suggestions. They could be modified, but there are some things that would be code issues, like the door from the house out to the garage would have to be a rated door with a self-closing device per code, for example. But as far as the style of it, you could certainly make a change to that. A lot of times we'll get questions about the door thing, and they'll say 2880. So what that is the size of the door, 2 feet 8 inches by 8 feet 0 inches high. So it's the width and then the height of it, and that's how we typically lay that out, that information as far as the doors go. As far as windows go, we have always specified Andersen Windows. I have a long history with their product success. My clients have had great success with it. It's a great family company, been around for well over 100 and some years, and they stand behind a product, which is really great. I've had a lot of issues from my clients where they stood behind it and replaced it or made it right. So that's why we typically specify Andersen. Doesn't mean you can't use another product, but that's how we specify it. The other thing you're going to see here is a area tabulation sheet that'll show out the living area, the garage, and then the total square footage added up. Now, just a note on area tabs. We show gross living area, so we include the thickness of the walls. A lot of times people say, "Well, I came up with only it says 3,000, but I only came up with 2,600 square feet." But if you took each individual room and just the net wall area, yeah, you would get a much lesser square footage. But we always include, which is pretty much an accepted standard, is the gross floor area, which is inclusive of the wall thicknesses, and that's how we determine that. So you'd have this sheet here, the floor plan call out sheets. And then the next sheet, as I mentioned, is the floor plan dimension sheet. So on this one, you're going to see overall dimensions, major breaks, which you already have on the foundation layout plan. But in addition, this is going to get into specificity about window openings, or at least the center line of the windows and doors, so the placement of that. It's going to dimension the interior wall areas. And so this is the information that, like, for example, your framer would need to lay out the walls and window openings on your home. So that's the purpose of this sheet, just to give that information. The next sheet we typically have in a set of one of our plans is a roof layout plan or roof plan. What we're trying to do here is convey our design intent so that the framer, the builder, the truss company would know how to lay the roof out, where the hips and valleys are, roof pitches, overhangs, plate heights, things like that. Now, what we don't get into is, showing the actual trusses. Here in Southwest Florida, we do engineered trusses. So there are multiple companies with different software programs. They may come up, each one may come up with a different solution of how to engineer a truss system for this house. So we don't get into that, but we do give the overall design intent. If, like, for example, if there's attic storage areas, we'll indicate that for air handlers or just storage areas, try to make a provision for that. Trying to think through the home, even though we don't design the HVAC, we want to give some thought process and usually locate air handlers, reference them at least in the air compressors on the outside so that there's a thought process and allowance for it in the design. But again, in a lot of areas, you would do trusses, but a lot of areas we also find that people just still do conventionally framing, framing it out on the job site and building the roof system. But again, for any of that, I would recommend you to work with a truss company or a structural engineer in your area to kind of size it, because again, Florida, obviously snow load's not a condition, but obviously in Minnesota it's a big concern. So your sizes of your top core of your trusses or your rafter sizes, would have to make accommodations for snow load that we wouldn't here in Florida or Texas or wherever. So that's the purpose of the roof layout plan. I'm going to kind of leave it at here for this video series, but the next series I'll talk about the exterior elevations and the building section, interiors. But again, thank you for your time, and hopefully this is helpful information for you as you go through the process of selecting a home, and then once you've got it, going through that building process, because I know it can be kind of overwhelming, and you'll hear a lot of people tell you a lot of different things, but we're here to help make sure the process goes as smooth as possible, and thank you for considering Sater Design. Thank you.